We are back because a blockbuster trade just happened. Stephon Diggs is no longer in Buffalo. He's on his way to Houston. Everyone else said they could make it, and they didn't show up. Only the loyal two, me, Philip Call, and Connor Lucas are here. Connor, thank you for, turning on your computer.
We got all kinds. We got good topics. We got like a month's worth of topics.
Dude, Anthony says he can't talk about this. You and I could rant on just all this garbage
did
for
30
hours,
minutes before the show, so yeah.
That's how we prep. Connor and I just yell at each other before the show. It really gets our blood going, and then we
just
hop
yell
on
into
here.
the microphone at each other.
And Ken is off doing doctor things or something. I don't know. He'll be back one day. Anyways, let's just start off. Let's start off. Stephon Diggs heading to Houston for a second. I think the net package it comes out to be like a third-round pick if you consider they're sending out a second, but they get like a fifth and a sixth next year back. So let's start off easy. Houston now has C.J. Stroud, who was an absolute baller. Nico Collins, who was a freak with the real quarterback. And then Tank Dell, who was one of the best rookie receivers last year. So how good is Houston after this move?
Well, so there's two things. One thing is interesting about the Diggs piece. They wanted him out so bad that they were going to pay him $27 million this year if they kept him. And they increased the dead cap hit by trading him to $31 million. So they're paying more to get him off the team than if they were to keep him on the team and play him. So they're basically calling him a cancer, which at the end of the day, I don't know if I necessarily agree with. He's a wide receiver in today's NFL that was a once top 3-4 wide receiver in the NFL. He's aging, but he still wants to capitalize on that piece. So, do I blame him for being loud and dramatic? No. I mean, this is the age, man. DeAndre Hopkins got traded last year. Julio Jones got traded at this age too. My brother also brought up Jordy Nelson got traded at about this age too, back in the Green Bay.
AJ Green
right? Got traded about this time. I mean, this is it. Adam Thielen got traded too. He had kind of a good year and then fell off because the whole Panthers fell off. But my point is, this is par for the course. Everyone exits about this time, and the window that we talk about is right now for the Texans. They clearly believe that they're going to go forward, and they have a real shot at a Super Bowl. So their window is got to be right now, because otherwise you don't take a 31-year-old aging wide receiver. You just don't. Now, they get a free pass with him because most of that is probably eaten with the Bills. So, it's kind of like it's a really good move for them. But to answer your question about receiving, you're also betting big on Bobby Slowick. Hey, Bobby Slowick wasn't a fluke. Is Bobby Slowick Byron Leftwich in a one-year window where Byron Leftwich was a really hot name for the Tampa Bay Bucks? They crushed it. He was offensive coordinator with Bruce Arians, and they said he's the next up-and-comer. And then the next year after the Super Bowl, Bruce Arians sucked. Byron Leftwich is now gone. Tom doesn't like him. The rest is history. So what do we get with Bobby Slowick? They clearly think that Bobby Slowick is the guy. And I saw somebody talk about a guy today with rumors about Joe Brady, Bills offensive coordinator. Kind of related to Diggs. Bobby Slowick is very well revered in inner circles with the NFL because he is a very good schemer. Joe Brady is not, because he does not know how to scheme his guys open. He knows a scheme, but the reason that Diggs got choppy with him was because he has a scheme and says, run the scheme. I'm agnostic to who's the wide receivers and the people touching the ball. My scheme works. Higher end offensive coordinators like Slowick, like Canales, like obviously the Shanahans of the world, Sean McVay, they say, my scheme is fluid. my guys make my scheme. I am going to make my scheme built around the strengths of my guys. How does Puka Nacua go from nowhere in BYU to literally the offensive rookie of the year relative? Well, that's because Sean McVay said, I'm going to scheme around you. So all of this to say, we're going to find out. It's going to be Bobby Slowick, and you're on the clock, buddy. CJ Stroud, you're on the clock, buddy. D'Amico Ryans, you're on the clock. So we're going to find out, and, you got some ancillary stuff that comes along with that. Joe Mixon, their window is now. I love this move. There's just, you almost want to make this move like halfway through the season when you start out like 6-1 and the Bills start out 3-3, something along those lines. But we're in it now, no going back.
So Texans, I think, are up to like plus 1,600 is last I saw on like FanDuel odds to win the Super Bowl. It's right next to the Cowboys at like 6 or 7-ish. You think that's appropriate? You think that's too high for everything they've done? This jumped them. They were like plus 2,500, and they moved to plus 1,600 by adding Diggs.
Well, because answer your 6 or 7. I'm trying to think of 6 or 7 teams above.
So let me give you teams with higher win totals. We'll start there. All right. So San Fran, Detroit, Dallas, Philly, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Those are the only teams with higher win totals. Expected win totals.
I would say that's probably about right. I don't like Philly all that much.
I was going to say, I think they have a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than Philly, and everyone knows Dallas. Dallas isn't going to win it. So,
I mean, like, Philly has a lot more question marks. They filled a gap. It's with Kellen Moore, right? Kellen Moore can he do what he did with everywhere that he's been with Dallas and the Chargers with Jalen Hurts? I don't know the answer. Philly lost a lot. A Pro Bowl center, a bunch on defense. They're bleeding on defense. Hassan Reddick just signed somewhere else today. Like, they're bleeding bad. To a new offensive and defensive coordinator. I don't know. So in terms of win totals, like, I kind of like where they are, but it feels it feels fine, but I don't want to say this because I'm starting to delve out into statistics, which I don't want to do because that's your thing. But, like, you do want to quote unquote bet on things that have happened before, right? Sure things. Kansas City before. San Francisco. Sure things that are like, yeah, I like them being back to where they are, rather than a newcomer entering the scene. Because now you do a lot of things that are fluky. Right, there are. I'm trying to think of a team in recent memory that had like a really flashy year. Okay, Arizona. We were just talking about them. They went 11-6, made the playoffs, ousted in the playoffs, and they've been terrible ever since. People were probably
and they made aggressive moves and shot themselves in the foot actually because of it.
And so they did aggressive things. They brought in James Conner. They paid Kyler. They
grabbed Hollywood.
Right, paid Hollywood. Like, that didn't work. Cliff Kingsbury was the guy. Cliff Kingsbury, if you look at that was his best season by far, college and professional. And it was on the back of Kyler, a healthy Kyler. Kyler gets hurt. He's basically missing a full year. Cliff gets canned. I mean, so to go out and make all of these moves, like, you gotta bet big.
I'll be right back, baby.
They could be anywhere from 7 to 10.
I currently am highly on the stand that they are overrated. And I'm not trying to be critical. Like, obviously it's being critical. But, when you have a team that plays that far above themselves with a rookie coach, with a, rookie everything. And we've said defensive coaches come in and they change an ethos. And I think they raise the level of play more than an offensive guy on the first year, except for masterminds like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. I think defensive guys, Tomlin, stuff like that, Mike Vrabel, they can get you more wins against good teams than you should And that's just due to like bringing in just more like positive energy. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like they give you the willpower, the know-how, the willpower to do it, whatever, and it works. Which is why I'm worried about next year behind defensive guy at the helm. I know Bobby Slowick was good, but Mike McDaniel was great for a year, and then people caught up to him a little bit. And like, how much can you adapt year over year? And then lastly, like the Jags were terrible for some reason. Like they're still, I think, a really good football team. Tennessee is going all in, which I think is hilarious. I don't know what they see in their roster.
That's one that is unique. They're just doing it very poorly. They're betting on Callahan. I like him.
I mean, I respect them for being aggressive, but know when to be aggressive. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, you know?
Okay, but you're going in like you don't have any young studs. Okay, it's one thing to go all in with Stroud, and then you had 2 hits in Nico Collins and Tank Dell. It's another thing to go all in with a question mark, a total question mark. Everyone loved Will Levis for his 4 touchdown game, and then statistically, you can go in, and I'm sure you probably know it, PFF graded him like the worst quarterback after that game for the rest of the year.
You and I even said he didn't have a good game. He threw the ball really far 4 times to DeAndre Hopkins.
He actually only had like something like 20, mid-20s type of attempts or something like that, mid to high 20s, and he just 4 of them went for touchdowns. And I am just absolutely shocked that they went for that. But hey, it is what it is. But they didn't go out and get someone like Brandon Aiyuk or T. Higgins. They went out and got and paid what they would have given those kind of contracts to a 29-year-old gambler who's going to be 30 basically halfway through the season. So I
don't get it. But anyways, back to the Texans. We're not here to pick on the Titans and take the under for them yet. It's going to come later in the offseason. But I'm just looking, and it's like teams, I think, in the AFC alone that are better than Houston still. At this moment, I'm still taking Buffalo. Call me crazy. We'll cover them more deeply after we cover Houston on this side of the trade. I still think Jacksonville's neck and neck, if not better than them, because at this moment, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over CJ Stroud. That can easily change next year, and Houston can go miles ahead of them. But for right now, I think the pedigree to Trevor Lawrence gives him the edge. And I'm just saying that because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks have great rookie years and then regress the second year. So I want to see CJ Stroud do it for another like 4 games, and then I'll anoint him as like, in that tier, that upper echelon of teams.
Joe Burrow.
That quarterbacks. Anyways, Baltimore I think's better. Cincinnati I think's better. This is obviously a hot take, and everyone's going to scream at me for being a homer, but Cleveland I think is better. Kansas City, and that's it. So it's like I still think they're only like the 6th or 7th best team in the AFC, let alone adding in San Francisco and Detroit from the NFC. So I think they're overrated, and they're the hot young team coming in, and I just haven't seen that work for anyone except for the Ravens. I like the Ravens in Kansas City. Cincinnati, once they were like popular, I feel like they haven't been. When they made their Super Bowl run, they were a 9-7 team that almost lost to the Raiders in the first round. So I think Joe Burrow is just money. But I don't know. I want to see more out of Houston. I want to see a repeat year. And now they have a harder schedule too.
You just have to remember the AFC North is far and away the hardest division in football.
That's true.
And everyone knows it. So if you get there, they are just like, they had 3 or 4 teams make it last year. It's like one of the, it was,
and the only one that did it was Cincinnati, who like missed Burrow
7-9 and didn't have Burrow. So like, and yeah, so that whole division is just a total gauntlet. So you have 3 out of 4 teams, minimum, that are going to be coming from there. Houston, let's say the other 3 suck. Okay. Buffalo, Miami to an extent, KC, LAC, and what is that? 8 teams right there? Like, just in your own division or in your own conference.
Yeah, it is
crazy.
I would say it's hard, and I respect them for going all in. I think it is what they should do. I think it's the right move. But
why?
I think
because
I think the public perception.
Mahomes is going to be in his prime for the next 6 years. You got to fight fire with fire.
Well, I guess my point is, like, it's more so the public perception saying, oh, they're one of the best now. It's like, all right, let's always, I guess I always try to be like, teams are going to be more average than they were last year. So if they were really good, I think they're going to come back down to earth. If they were really bad, I think they'll step up a little bit. Anyways, so that's where I am on Houston. A little bit lower than everyone. I think they're probably closer to, like, right behind Cleveland in terms of, like, just pure talent rankings. And I'm obviously going to say Cleveland had Deshaun Watson, who was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year, and think that's going to be a little bit better next year. And even though they had, like, Flacco, I think you'd offset it. So that's where I'm at. All right, it's right around that neck and neck with Cleveland tier, even though they whopped them in the playoffs. Let's go on though to the Buffalo effect, and this is where I'm excited, because all late last year, early in the playoffs, I said Khalil Shakir is a dude. He's a legitimately good NFL wide receiver. I think realistically he's a 2, not a 1. But he is the current number 1 in Buffalo, and I'm excited to see what he does with this opportunity. I don't think it's as far a step back, because I think Gabe Davis was trash, and they got Curtis Samuel to replace him, who, worst case, is, I think, as good. And then I think Shakir can replicate what Diggs did, especially if we think about when they were successful last year at the end of the year. When Diggs has his disappearing act in December, like he did both the last 2 seasons. So that's why I'm very optimistic for Buffalo still, because Diggs had always been useless starting week 11 the last 2 seasons, and it never seemed to phase Buffalo. So what do you think? Do you think, obviously, losing $31 million of cap to get rid of your number 1 wide receiver isn't good, but do you think this is a huge setback?
That tells you that I told you he was a cancer, or they considered him a cancer, too much of a problem than what he was worth. Fine. Okay, so was, so was Julio, so was DeAndre back when with Arizona. Okay, like they didn't.
We missed Devontae Adams too. Same exact thing, and that's the guy who was the legit, still maybe number 1 receiver at the time he was moved.
And at 31, still put up crazy numbers. Anyways, so did Hopkins, by the way. This just tells you that they are going to do something on draft day. Either on draft day, whether they trade for someone and give up the 28th pick and go get someone, or they're going to draft the 4th or 5th best wide receiver. But they're pulling the Patrick Mahomes approach, which is give me a litany of semi-good weapons, and I'll scheme it up. But like I said, maybe Joe Brady's not the guy for that. Either way.
Honestly, I would love to see them run a Lamar Jackson year 2 offense, where it was heavy tight ends, because they have Dawson Knox and with Dalton Kincaid already. You focus on the run game, which James Cook was lighting it up at the end of the year last year. And then you try to limit Josh Allen's exposure to bad throws, right? Because that's always been their Achilles heel, is he makes stupid plays. But then you allow him to use his athleticism when it's necessary. So I am hoping that Joe Brady can do that. I don't think that's his system, obviously, because that's never been what he's done, except for the last 6 games last year.
I think Curtis Samuel's underrated. Same with Khalil Shakir.
Do you think Samuel's better than Gabe Davis?
Yeah, way more. But I mean, he's more dynamic, and if you can scheme him correctly, fine. Gabe Davis is going to give you
7 targets, 3 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown, maybe.
0 catches or 7 catches and nothing in between. So I would take Samuel over him all day. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. You're betting big on Josh Allen. I just think that you have, like, this is teetering. The Bills are teetering. Josh Allen couldn't be Superman with all of those guys, and now you're asking him to do more. They had a real bad offseason. Poyer gone, Tre'Davious White gone. They lost, I think they maybe get Milano back, but they lost a lot on defense here, and they're losing a ton on offense, and I just don't know. I think the Bills might fall off in that division.
That's a. I guess it depends how much you believe in Miami and the Jets. I think I like the Jets more than Miami next year, but that's just because Miami is just, dude, they are straight up. They are like Stephon Diggs. They are allergic to the cold.
We'll see. That's another thing. Right. We don't even have to talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to having to do that. All right. What's some other stuff we wanted to talk about? Okay. Oh, here it is. Justin Fields headed to Pittsburgh. Him and Russell Wilson. All right, so I got a couple questions on this one for you. So get your thoughts. Pittsburgh was a playoff team last year. Are they in a better position this year? Yes or no? Now, you don't have to say they're a better football team, because I am on the stance that they didn't deserve to make the playoffs last year. They got lucky with 2 games that were won by strip sack fumbles. And I know Tomlin, that's the way we play football, man. That's not a Tomlin impression, obviously.
Obviously not.
That's just a football guy impression, I guess.
There it is.
Anyways, yeah, that's how we win. We just win football games, like whatever. And it's like, no, you can't bet on your defense scoring like 15 times to win games. So back to it. Do you think they are better with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields over the crapshoot they had at quarterback last year? And are they a playoff team again this year?
So there's 2 different things, though. You can be better than you were last year and lose more games.
Yes, I want to emphasize that. That's what I tried to get across. Sorry if I did a bad job.
You can be better than you were last year, but the rest of the division also is going to get way better this year, because Deshaun's back, Burrow's back, Baltimore reloaded. You can do whatever you want. One way or the other, all they're trying to figure out this year is, A, is Arthur Smith a moron? Or is he just a offensive coordinator with his guys and they can be kind of good? Number 2, they're figuring out, okay, does Russ have anything left in the tank? Denver's taking an all-time high cap hit, a historically number 1 rated cap hit, to not have him on their team. Double the Deshaun Watson cap hit. Stephon Diggs cap hit, and actually probably close to the Deshaun Watson cap hit, but he actually still plays. And they're figuring out, wow, we have a total of $5 million invested in our quarterbacks this year, when people like Baker Mayfield are getting a $100 million deal. That's pretty good. And hey, by the way, do you know who's tailor-made for Arthur Smith's offense? Take a guess. Did I say this? Did we call this last year?
Hold the phone. Listen. We called it last year, but you also have to remember, as of right now, the backup quarterback is Justin Fields. And there is no guarantee Arthur Smith will play the people who are actually best at football. We saw that in Atlanta.
Again, 1 read, 2 read offense, pull it down and run it. Run the ball 60% of the time. Tailor-made for Justin Fields. Got it. What's interesting, kind of a separate hot take, is Jim Harbaugh walked so Arthur Smith could run, and now Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are back in the NFL. So That will be interesting. That's going to be an interesting dynamic.
All right. So I am high on this, and people can make fun of me. Russell Wilson, I believed in him the last 2 years, and he burned me. Cut me deep, Shrek. Cut me real deep. So I think he is a downgrade from the quarterback play that they got last year, which is very insulting. I'm well aware.
Wait a minute.
But
wait, Justin Fields is a downgrade?
No. Russell Wilson.
The
current starting quarterback who threw 10 passes a game in Denver. And while he can throw a beautiful 50-yard pass, apparently he can't do anything else. So I am, depending how quickly they move to Fields, I might side with you. But as of right now, I am not going to say, I'm going to say this is a bad position for Pittsburgh. I think.
Oh, they're in a terrible position. I think it's a good position for them to figure out their future. Is my point.
Yeah. Okay. I'll agree with you with that.
I don't think
Fields will be starting week 9.
Yeah. I think so. Russell Wilson, I think, is cooked. I did see an interesting take today that was even a guy that we don't necessarily like, but Nick Wright did have a decent take where he does believe that Russell Wilson made a conscious decision to keep his important stats for contract negotiations good. QBR, TD to INT ratio, take more sacks rather than
throw bad passes,
put ball in danger. Thus, he could go in, get another opportunity, because if you're watching it last year, you're trying to win games, you do bad things, you're done. You're 35 years old. Like, this isn't winning games like Matt Stafford at 35. You're losing games now. You're not gunslinging it anymore. Your game does not age well. I'm making a decision to do X, Y, and Z.
See, now it's those kind of takes that I think are great for TV, but you also miss the point where if you watch the film, he didn't just not throw the ball to people in covered when he was getting sacked. He didn't throw the ball to wide open receivers in open pockets. There's like a million clips.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry Judy was my favorite one. He ran like a crosser. The safety didn't even see him and ran back deep. And Jerry Judy, from like the 3-step to the 5-step to like the whole progression, was wide open. And Russell Wilson, I think, checked it down to like 3 yards covered or something. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but that is 100%, I think, a clickbait take. And because like if you watch the film, you're like, yeah, no, Russell Wilson didn't do what you said. He just sucked and missed everyone.
Oh yeah. So that's why it does sound good on TV because it makes sense, but like that's only like 50% of what actually happened. The other one is he just didn't see them and then took sacks.
That's the cart leading the horse. That's you looking up something. You're like, oh, Russell Wilson had good stats. I'll explain it saying this. It's like, no. Turn on some game film, all right? Anyways, let's go over now to what we should have talked about after Diggs. Wide receivers that are on or potentially on the move. Higgins and Brandon Aiyuk both requested trades or somehow have been linked into trades. I don't know all the details. I know Higgins is on a tag, and I think Aiyuk is in like the 5th year of his deal, but San Francisco already wrote checks to like 90% of their team. Everyone not named Brock Purdy, pretty much. So let's start there. Number 1, who would you rather see in Buffalo, T or Aiyuk?
Okay. So, what's interesting about... Okay, the answer is Aiyuk, but I don't think there's a wrong answer. I know you're surprised because I have Higgins.
Well, no, like there's not add a top tier receiver to any team. It's like you're right. It's gonna work.
We're splitting hairs here, but I would say what's better for Josh Allen is Aiyuk because of the separation that he can get just purely based off of his route running ability. he can get open on anybody in any coverage, man zone, doesn't matter. And the way that Josh Allen plays is backyard football half the time. So some of his stuff is you might not be open initially. I'm going to run around back there, and then you just got to break off and play backyard football. I think he is more built for running around in circles and getting separation. T. Higgins is like, I don't want to call it. I don't want to call it old.
Dude, I'm on the same page.
It's not old school. I don't know how you describe it, but we're talking about.
He's one of the best at the catch point. That's the modern version.
6'4", 215, and he runs a 4.5.
That's the modern version of saying he plays like Des, or he does what Des Bryant did better than most people in the NFL.
Like Des Bryant, Andre Johnson, not Mike Wallace because he was a speedster, but 6'3", 6'4" frames that are overly strong. Anquan Bolden maybe to an example, Larry Fitzgerald to maybe a little bit, but those guys aren't blowing by you and they're not running like T. Higgins is not a technician. T. Higgins is a guy that you get into the red zone and he is you're just going to lose. He's going to throw up. You're going to get the ball thrown up to him. So does that match what Josh Allen does worse or better? It's kind of agnostic, but if you're putting a gun to my head, Aiyuk matches better because he is going to want to say, holy crap, this play's blown, and apparently Joe Brady sucks at calling plays. Everyone just run around in circles and get the most separation. That's going to be Aiyuk. That's my take.
So subtle thing. Connor's already calling for Joe Brady's job, apparently. And he already got like 6 OCs fired last year, so Joe Brady better keep his eyes out. Second of all, what I was going to say is I agree with everything you're saying in terms of talent and like what Allen does. The difference is I think T. Higgins matches that better because he's one of those guys where it's like, oh, I see him double covered, but I'm Josh Allen and I think I have a candidate. I'm just going to throw it there as hard as I can. I trust T. Higgins with more of those 50-50 balls. And I think that's one of those special things that, you get with Mahomes and Kelsey where it's like, you see your guy, the defense is all moving one way, and Josh Allen just knows to throw it to T, and it kind of works out on its own because of how much chemistry and how they run. So that's why I like T. Higgins more. It's just like when those plays break down, Josh Allen sees them, he throws the 50-50 ball, and T. Higgins makes it 70-30 his favor instead. Yeah, however, like you said previously,
of the field though.
Yeah, but like you said previously, it's like, well, Brandon Aiyuk does so much better on the first, 3 seconds of the play. So splitting hairs if you're taking one. Okay, let's go over to the next team that is probably the most exciting to watch in the draft, in my opinion, Minnesota Vikings. So they just lost Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. They have one of the best receiving cores in the NFL between Jefferson, Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. I think they are a team that isn't built perfectly for now, but they're a team that they're a 9-10 win team if they have a quarterback. So what do you think happens right now? Last time we said JJ McCarthy could be their guy, but now he's flying up everyone's board.
This is where I don't know enough smart people. Like, there's a guy that does come on Colin Cowherd all the time. That's like the quarterback guy that breaks down film. And
Greg Cassell?
Yes.
I love Greg Cassell. I think he is one of the good things that I got out of Colin Cowherd's show.
I see him and he breaks down these guys all the time. And he doesn't do things subjectively. He stays very objective and talks about true quarterbacking. He doesn't get tied into the winning of the game, the losing of the game. He just looks at the quarterbacks and the quarterback play. I would like to get his take on JJ McCarthy because there are lots of takes about JJ now about, hey, stats are deflated because of Jim Harbaugh, arm talent's there, decision-making is there, athletes there, arms there, whatever. I don't know enough about that. The question is, from what I hear on probably the same things you are, Kevin O'Connell's offense is relatively complex. And can he pick it up fast enough to do it and do it well and feed Addison, Hawkinson, and most importantly, Jefferson? I don't know, because you didn't see him do all that much besides Alex Smith the game for Michigan. When he needed to go up, he passed a lot. When he needed to hand the ball off against Penn State, where he had this many passes in the second half to get the win last year, he did that. But people like his accuracy, like his arm strength, they like all the tangibles, and he's a winner. But, like, I'm just trying to think of a good recent memory comp who did or did not work out that way. I don't know one. So, total wild card, I think they go up and do it. He's the most likely candidate. I don't know if they can get all the way to 3. Supposedly, the Patriots are thinking about moving down. But I don't know. Are they going to get Drake May? If they're at 3 and they don't take Drake May, seriously, if they're at 3, they get the Patriots pick, and they take J.J. McCarthy, I think there's something wrong. Kevin O'Connell's got a problem. But I don't know. The total jury's out on me. I watched J.J. obviously a lot because he played Ohio State, but I'm probably higher on him than most Buckeyes are. But I just don't know, because the sample size, you can say, oh, he's won for 2 or 3 years. Okay. But, like, we're going off of 10 throws a game that we liked, and 5 of those were NFL-type throws, and they could be ooh-ah throws, and then he didn't do it again for maybe 2 or 3 games, and then he goes, well, they only played, do you know how many games that they played in the second half where they were done by the third quarter? Okay, like, yeah, I get it, but total wild card there. You're betting on the talent there and not the resume. This is like Anthony Richardson light in terms of betting on talent, in terms of bet. He has better tools in terms of passing, but Anthony Richardson is a freak of nature. So you bet on either one of those, you're still taking a bet.
So yeah, I think the draft always does this and gets people, like, confused about, like, every draft pick, right? When you look at it, everyone thinks that they know how to draft better than everyone else. So a draft pick is more valuable than a player for the most part. Like, Caleb Williams is obviously more valuable than the first overall pick, but after him, second and third, like, you get biases and how you rank them. So it's like the mystery of the draft pick is alluring, and that's what's happening with J.J. McCarthy, which I really don't like. It's like, yeah, J.J. McCarthy could be anything, even as good as these other guys that we have film on, but we don't know. Well, we know what they are, and we don't know what J.J. McCarthy is, and that's what scares me the most about trying to be aggressive for a guy like that. So then the Vikings' alternative solution is Sam Darnold, and he definitely plays quarterback. So, all right, I know we're not talking win totals for everyone right now, but I got the Vikings at 6.5 right now. That tells me that they're not getting another quarterback. With Darnold as the starter, would you take over or under?
Okay, but here's another thing that you have to factor in. You literally have the best wide receiver in the NFL not signing whatever contract you have until you can prove to him that you can get him a quarterback. So it is not just all fun and games and for a year and you just throw whoever back there.
That's true.
You have a serious problem on your hands. You can go down all kinds of, as I would call it, fan fiction, just the same way that you have non-canon things for, like, you know, Star Wars and DC, whatever. Let's go down that path. If I am the Vikings, why am I not, like, offering the Chargers 11? No. Yeah. They have it at 5. Why am I not offering them 11 and 28 for Justin Herbert? Why? Why would I not do that? Why am I not offering them a?
Because they're not saying yes to 11 and 28.
Fine, 11, 28, 25 first next year. I'm serious. Like, you have what are you trying to get in the draft in the first rounds most of the time?
Justin Herbert.
You're trying to get a Justin Herbert. You're trying to get a Justin Jefferson. You're trying to get a Jordan Addison. And the rest of the stuff you can piecemeal together, more or less. Because, by the way, remember, the defense for Minnesota got way better last year. So
yeah, because they have a great coach now.
They have a great coach there. So you could say whatever you want about the division being tough. Let's call it the second toughest division now that
Green Bay's the real team.
Assuming Caleb Williams goes to the Bears and he does what he's supposed to do, you're the second toughest division in football. But you have a finite window for everyone else. Clock starts ticking. So, I mean, I'm very serious about you're not in prime position to sit around and wait, A, and B, you're not in prime position to go get a quarterback. So who's on the market that you can pry away?
Dude, I love everything you just said about if I'm Minnesota, I would actually put it up both ways. I would say you have pick 5, we have Justin Jefferson. Do you want to make something happen around that? And if they say no, be like, we have pick 11, 28, and a lot of future picks.
Yep.
Can we make something happen with Herbert? And it's like, if you want to go one way or the other, I'm happy. But like, let's get something done because both of these work in our favor. And the reason I like Jefferson in Los Angeles is they're eating dead cap money this year, right? They got a big pile of money they're paying out to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and a bunch of other restructuring they've done.
You got problems.
But like, but if you get Justin Jefferson, you don't owe him that much this year. You owe him a shoot ton going forward when you sign him.
Yeah.
But that's when you open up a bunch of cap.
Yep.
So if that's fantasy land, but I want to live there. If that place lives.
This is the take that if it comes out and we call this is the take that will make us famous. I'm telling you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's
the Vikings and Chargers on the phones together. I don't know if they have any front office connections. Come on. We got to
here's the final thing that I'll say this. The quarterback position is the cheapest it will ever be today, which means Justin Herbert's contract last year is the cheapest you will ever get a franchise quarterback. Period. They're talking about Dak and Tua getting $50 million this year. Are you kidding me? No way. So that contract is already locked in for Herbert for the next 4 or 5 years. There's your window. You are taking whatever you get to more or less go back a year at the QB market. You might as well.
And John Harbaugh gets to enter the NFL with his quarterback from college. Like
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh gets to walk in with his quarterback from college.
Also
it's
made
poetry.
Crazy comments about J.J. McCarthy's the best quarterback in this draft. You'd be crazy not to take him at 1. All that kind of stuff. So
do you know what he's doing? He's like, dude, just let Caleb fall to 5.
Yeah, I mean, so he's actually trying to push it up to where I think he's trying to get Marv at 5 or Neighbors at 5. And because they need desperately a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So, or Bowers at 5, potentially.
Everyone says Brock Bowers to the Chargers, and that just feels like too vanilla of move. But then again, I haven't seen a good receiver come out of a Harbaugh system. Like Michael Crabtree is the best he produced in the NFL, and even then, that was like, I'd say he was a A-, B+ kind of guy.
Yep.
Anyways, there was something else we had on this list that I wanted to bring up to you. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. All right, so let's just do this. We have, actually, we had a question in the chat. I can totally clip me being confused right now. Question in the chat was Jerry Judy going to the Browns. seriously, obviously, people that know me are Browns fans because I'm from Cleveland. So, do you think he fits? So, I'm going to start off on this one because I just watched a podcast from Thinking Basketball. If you like basketball, highly recommend Thinking Basketball. It's fantastic. And they were talking about the difference in the NBA of players that work together and players that don't. And the obvious example is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have the same exact players across the team, and so they don't work well together. And when they all play, it's a problem. Jerry Judy does not fit with Deshaun Watson based on anything we saw last year. Do you know how I know? Because Jerry Judy operates in the same part of the field as David Njoku, and David Njoku was garbage with Deshaun Watson. You know who he was great with? Joe Flacco. So while I am a huge Jerry Judy believer, I think Deshaun Watson works well with guys like Amari Cooper, who are going to line up outside and attack outside the numbers and create and be there for him when he creates creatively. You saw Marquise Goodwin was getting playtime for the Browns despite being a terrible wide receiver who's aging and getting slower. But that's because he could run really fast in a straight line, and Deshaun Watson loves to chuck those deep passes. Jerry Judy is not going to do that. He's going to target 10 to 15 yards. And I think he would work well. I think our group chat said with Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Tua, guys that operate in that 10 to 15 yard. When you break, the ball's coming. Deshaun Watson isn't a great timely thrower, or anticipatory thrower. And so I'm worried about Judy from that aspect. Now, what I am optimistic on for the Browns, Judy 2 years ago, 9.5 yards per target, top 20 PFF receiver. The talent is there. And at some point, either the Browns got to give up on Deshaun Watson, and if they bring in someone new, it could work. They have like 5 backup quarterbacks now. It's hilarious how long the list of quarterbacks are that they are signing.
And they met with Bill Milton this week. They met with the Tennessee quarterback who was middle of the pack, but he has a cannon. That's it. That's all.
Now that's the guy. That's the kind of guy who replicates Deshaun Watson's talent. I don't know what I'd do. So I am low on the fit. I'm high on the player. So the net benefit is solid, but the Browns paid him way too much for what he will be in this system. They're
playing fantasy football with real football, which is crazy to me because they're like projecting like something that he's going to do, which is what we do about fantasy guys all the time. Situation changes and we're like, yo, he was held back by this. He's going to be a breakout or whatever. They're doing that in real football, which is insane.
Yeah, we don't write out $20 million checks to these guys, you know?
Yeah, they're writing a check based on a future earning. And this is like a tech stock. Could it blow up? Maybe. Could it go to zero? Sure. For sure.
Could it blow up? Could be used both ways. Will it go really high or blow up and then, be dead?
Why not go out and say, I'm going to write a $50 million check to Brandon Aiyuk. Let's go do that. No, let's just hope that we're going to write a $50 million with like $30 or $40 million guaranteed. Sure, fine. Calvin Ridley and Aiyuk, those would have similar contracts. Fine, I get that. Being facetious there a little bit. But come on. Like, this guy has had he had 900 yards 2 years ago, and he's had like 600 or 700 in his first and third seasons. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Dude, I completely agree. Now, the one thing I think the Browns have done well, actually, is they have not drafted receivers in the top 2 rounds, and instead have traded 5th and 6th round picks to get receivers at discounts. Amari Cooper, Jerry Judy. The draft compensation that we turned into good receivers, I think is fantastic. However, like you just said, we went and blew it immediately.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's where we screwed up. All right, that's the self-actualization that we have to have here.
Yeah,
that's how the Browns messed this up. Anyways, so yeah, back to fit. Do you think it'll be a problem? Do you think it will work? Because I think the Browns actually, like on paper, have a good receiving core.
On paper,
probably,
yeah.
I'd call it B+. Cooper, Njoku, Judy, Moore.
So tell me, I don't know enough about Stefanski's offense except that it's run heavy. So I would assume that it's like a play action type style offense.
It's 100. Think like Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. If you
so
know
a lot
how
of under
Jefferson's
center,
used.
a lot of 5-6,
Yeah.
full on play action, all the way out over the tackle, roll out. Okay, like.
And then you're targeting your number one in one-on-one coverage for deep outs, deep comebacks, things like that.
Deep overs more or less, which Judy does well with those, but so does Njoku and so does Moore. So you got a lot of redundant receivers.
Well, and then like I said, Watson doesn't though. It's the whole. It doesn't. Yeah.
If I was them, so no. The answer is no. I think you're doing square. You're like drafting. You're playing best player available in free agency rather than best fit. It's like you're drafting BPA rather than finding best personnel fit. And I don't think that's. Yeah. I think you're fine with Njoku and Moore. You just need to do better with them. And if you're going to find something, you have to find a better Z. Because I believe Amari plays the backside X, is a true X one-on-one type receiver. So you have to find a front side guy who plays outside. Well, guess what? Jerry Judy doesn't play outside that much. If I was them, swear to you, I would have went out and got Cortland Sutton instead of Jerry Judy. That would have been a home run.
I would say Cortland Sutton is actually a guy I would have considered. The guy, I don't think he's leaving Denver, though. I think Peyton likes him. The guy I thought about a lot is Tyler Lockett. I think Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Because I think, not to call it apples to apples here, but he reminds me of he could do what Will Fuller did when, in the Houston days. And I'm like, now that is something that would be a cohesive piece where it is Njoku working the middle of the field, Lockett deep, Amari on the backside. So that's the big summary on why I love Jerry Judy, but think the Browns have screwed this one up. All right, let's get over to it. So the last two things that I wanted to talk about. Best off-season and worst off-season so far. So obviously draft can change everything. If you go and you hit 6 picks in the draft, congratulations. Your off-season just went from worst to first. But let's start off with the biggest winner. I will go first and let you think about this one. I have easily by a mile the Atlanta Falcons. Phil, why? I don't know what they've done. Well, obviously, they got Kirk Cousins, so it's like, okay, they got a great quarterback. That's a layup upgrade. The real reason, though, is Arthur Smith isn't their coach anymore. And Raheem Morris came in and said, I'm going to give the ball to our best players. And it's going to work really well because they are awesome and they're freak athletes and they're all top 10 picks. Can you imagine just simply upgrading your offensive scheme by giving the ball to the people who deserve it? And now you got a better quarterback to do that. So I am all in. Falcons have had a phenomenal offseason with addition by subtraction.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have paid Kirk $100 million guaranteed and $180 over 4 years. So you're telling me dude's going to play till he's 38 or 39? Probably not.
Yeah, I said the same thing when I saw the contract, but then I remembered Arthur Smith isn't there. So Falcons all the way. Get rid of the worst coach in the NFL and you win.
If you're going to take a guy who did it with Matt Stafford, 2 people that did it with basically Matt Stafford, Mostert was with LA, and obviously Stevenson was with LA, and they did it in 1 year with Stafford. They know how to do it.
It is a 2-year guaranteed contract for Kirk, so obviously, when his leg falls off because he's coming off a torn Achilles, or ruptured Achilles. I don't know the term. If Ken was here, he would yell at me for being like, "Yeah, the guy got shot in the leg or whatever,
ruptured Achilles or whatever." And I think the worst thing about Kirk is that it was his plant foot. He's a righty, so it's his right foot, I think. And ironically, Aaron Rodgers was his left. So Aaron Rodgers is actually in a better position to recover from his Achilles than Kirk is.
Well, Aaron Rodgers almost came back last year, if you remember.
We also called that and said he's full of hot garbage. So I think Ken was pretty adamant that was not
Ken laughed. Ken laughed at every report. Yeah. That was just New York media fluffing things.
I like that. Your finite window is very small. And I think you actually have a longer window with the Texans, who I think won the offseason so far, because they got an elite pass rusher to go along with a true, very, very late window running back in Joe Mixon. And then you have an arsenal of weapons at the wide receiver position. You've got a true X, you've got a true slot, a power slot. I wouldn't call it a power slot because he doesn't win by running power routes like Chris Godwin. He wins by running slot option choice routes, and that's Tank. And then Stefon overlaps more as you're kind of that Z. So X Nico, slot Y with Tank, and then Diggs would be your true Z, if you will, front side. And this is a wide receiver thing, so I'll go into like Connor's breakdowns on a whiteboard at some point. But why do you like a Z on the front side? Z's get pressed a lot less because they're rolling the safety over there. Usually they're on the front side, the strong side of the formation. Generally in the NFL, at least I shouldn't say in the NFL, in a lot of schemes, you roll the safety over. You play island ball with your X on the backside. He goes one-on-one. That's why the people that get paid the very most in the NFL are the backside solo island guys, which are the corners. So L'Jarius Sneed, he's going to go backside with Nico. He's going to go backside with your true X's, Amari Cooper, for example. Those are one-on-one guys. They get no safety help. Z's on the front side. If you notice, Diggs plays backside a little bit, but he also rotates to the front side. More zone, more off coverage. He can play in the literal zones of the offense, and he can sit down in the open windows. If you notice, think about it, Diggs was not the guy running deep for any of the Bills. That dude was a 8 catches for 110 and 2 touchdowns kind of guy. That's going to be fine. Stroud is the one thing that I worry about. They ran something like 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, so 3 wide receivers, only on something like 40% or less of their first down plays, right? So you're more or less 60% of those first down plays, you're pulling one of those guys off and having either 2 tight ends, and you're rarely going 10, which would be 4 wide. They're going to be 2 tight ends, and so one of those guys has to come off the field. So your play action is going to have to be a choice between who's on the field, Nico, Diggs, or Tank. And, you got Joe Mixon. By the way, Stroud's got to throw the ball 50 times, but somehow also give Joe Mixon 15 to 20 touches. Plus, Stephon Diggs is over on the sideline throwing his helmet because he only has 3 touches. So watch out. I mean, if you can figure that out, if you can marry all of that, they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I don't know if you can.
All right, so let's head over then to biggest loser of the offseason. I'll go again first. And I was not as prepared for this question when I saw it, but after a quick thought, I think the answer has got to be the Rams. They are a team that doesn't have a lot of resources at their disposal. Cap is a problem. Draft picks are a problem. And the reason they did that is because they had superstars, and it was okay. Well, they just lost Aaron Donald, the reason their defense functioned. Everyone's like, hey, they had this good linebacker, and they had this good young pass rusher that, they should be able to build on that. It's like, no. Aaron Donald demanded so much attention up front that those guys had easy lives for the NFL. Next year, they're going to be the focus of defenses. It's going to be a problem. This defense is going to regress mightily without the guy who is just probably maybe the second or best NFL defender we have ever seen. So it's a tragedy to see him retire. He was always a lot of fun to watch, and just ridiculous NFL pundits always said, well, he didn't have a great statistical game. Yeah, dude, he's a defensive tackle. The fact that he had a 20-sack season is absurd. It'd be like us saying, yeah, this fullback had 30 receiving touchdowns. What? So I'm going to miss Aaron Donald, and I think the Rams are going to be at a big loss with essentially like their whole defense being completely adjusted and targeted differently. Actually, I think someone said in joint practices, whenever Aaron Donald was on the field, the opposing team would put out their second string because they knew there was no point in like it's a practice. You want your starters to get tough competition, but you want them to learn your playbook. When Aaron Donald was on the field, you couldn't run your plays because he was on the field and you had to adjust everything to account for him. So that was even in practice, he caused problems.
Yeah, I mean, you still have the offensive side okay. So you're going to get in shootouts because you ain't got no defense, but you at least got the offensive mind still okay. So I like what they did less fine, but I think it's a tie between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos as worst off seasons because you're both in no man's land. You're going to get the 4th or the 5th best quarterback in this draft, if that's where you go. The Broncos probably have the lead because they have $60 million in dead cap that for somebody that's not on their team, maybe it's 80, I can't remember. Massive number to not play for your team. And you're sitting at, I think, 12 right now. So Caleb gone. Jaden Daniels gone. May gone. Probably McCarthy gone. Do you feel convicted enough on Penix or Bo Nix? Maybe. Do I like Jarrett Stidham or Stash? Probably not either of those ones either. So Devontae Adams is going to wither away, unfortunately.
Heartbreaking.
You lost Josh Jacobs. This is Vegas. If I'm Denver, I still have Sean Payton. Fine. You lost Judy, who's a good player that Sean Payton hated anyways. But you didn't use Marvin Mims last year. You kind of used Cortland Sutton. And instead, you're going to roll the dice potentially with either Bo Nix or Jarrett Stidham or Michael Penix on either of those. So, and by the way, Jim Harbaugh is potentially going to refresh the Chargers. They're going to make them a hard out. And by the way, 3 out of the last 4 Super Bowls are in your division, except it's with one team. And you got to play them twice a year. So good luck for both of you. And God rest your soul because you guys were probably both 8 wins or less next year.
So I want to emphasize Sean Payton did this to himself. And while I liked him as a Fox analyst, I thought he was very insightful. This is like, he took this job knowing what would happen. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. And he didn't take the job 2 years ago. He could have. And instead he didn't. He took it last year. And he said, I want to walk into a good situation. And then he got told that he will never get the Chargers job. And I think this is exactly why. So it's one of those things where it's like Sean Payton is an interesting man. I think he obviously knows a lot about football, but ego just gets in your way of success sometimes. And this is it. Lighting a bridge with Russell Wilson. Now you don't have any answer at quarterback. I don't understand how the Vikings and Broncos, like, if I'm the Bears, right? I get that 6th round pick offer from Pittsburgh. I immediately call the Vikings and the Broncos. And I just say, I got Justin Fields here. Give me a 5th and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And neither of them said yes.
I couldn't believe that. I can understand why Vegas didn't go out for Fields because they took their offensive coordinator. Again, another awful, awful, awful hire. So maybe Vegas goes in the lead with dumbest offseason move there with an awful offensive coordinator. But the cap hit is terrible. You're totally hamstrung by where you sit in your in the first round. Supposedly, Sean Payton is desperate to move up and pick one of those 4 quarterbacks. How, though? How? How can you get there? You do not have the capital of somebody who sits in front of you at 11 with a 28, who went out and got a 28th pick now, to move up to any of those, and you're going to beat one of them out? Impossible. You're going to hemorrhage the future that you don't have to get one of those quarterbacks because of Sean Payton's ego. I don't see it at all.
Maybe he's hoping Brady comes back next year.
Or he's thinking, listen, I'm just going to put all my chips in for the next 2 years, and then I'm out too. And then good luck. You're going to be an orphan.
That's true. Hey, he's like, hey, dude, they're paying me $20 million for 2 years of work. I'll take it and I'll go home.
You're going to be in the just complete cyclical spiral of the Panthers. Sorry.
Oh, man. So many fun teams that are just constantly embarrassing themselves with poor management.
Even though they have completely ruined everything that they've ever touched for the last 5 years, they've got a decent amount of picks over the second and third round. That's fine. You don't have your first, obviously. You lose Caleb Williams for that.
Your team's cheaper then. Like, at least there used to be a guy who said second round picks were more valuable than first because if you combine hit rate by times pay.
Yeah.
But
you went out and you tethered down a good quarterback who has a history, or quarterback coach who has a history, Canales, of fixing Russell Wilson and fixing Baker Mayfield. And then you went out and I saw this, which I thought was a good take. What did they do, or what does that potentially do for a short quarterback if you go and get 2 high-end guards? The 2 offseason moves that they made, they've signed 2 big-ish name guards. Why is that important? Because a short quarterback has to have lanes not directly in his face to see what other people can see over. You got to go in and get the middle of the line, center guard figured out for a guy like a Bryce Young, if that's going to work. So I would say that's relatively important. And for the love of donuts, just go out and get T. Higgins or Brandon Aiyuk. Just please. I mean, I get it. You got Deontay Johnson, who is a great route runner. I'm a big fan of DJ. But that's one person. You've got an all-time craptastic hit in Mingo. Useless. He'll be gone. Laviska Shenault, you missed. He's gone. Adam Thielen is probably about ready to blow out his ACL.
He's getting a walker.
And you have
DJ Chark,
crappy running backs or middle-tier running backs in Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders.
And they're paying Miles Sanders a top 6 RB salary.
Top 6 RB salary, and you can't cut him until next year.
It's just funny that irrational owners clearly just gut teams. Like, hey, when you go and sign, Josh McDaniels to revamp your offense, that was actually pretty good the year before.
All right, last question before we go.
All right.
Off the dome, right off the head, because that's what I do. Will Jerry Jones ever win another Super Bowl being GM and owner and always having the final say? Can he?
That's a layup. No. Like if there was a bet out there that was, will the Cowboys win any of the next 5 Super Bowls? I would bet right now a lot of money on that. I
was saying basically as long as Jerry Jones is owner. So you got probably another decade.
I said 5 years. He might die because, they suck for the next 5 years and keep blowing it the way they do. There is nothing I will make more money on than betting against the Cowboys in January.
But that's what I'm saying.
It worked 2 years ago and it worked last year.
This ties back to what I said earlier. The QB market will never be as cheap as it was today. Never. And you basically have a guy who is 30, 31 years old now that you're going to pay $50 million to. That's one playoff game?
Everyone's always said Dak Prescott is Kirk Cousins, and when we are done evaluating Kirk Cousins' income from his contracts, we will do the exact same thing with Dak Prescott after, because he will always be walking around and doing the exact same thing, except the only difference is instead of Kirk having to find a team to pay him more money, Jerry Jones is just like, we franchise tagged you. Oh well, now you're gonna leave. We gotta give you more money. Like,
now he did leave it open to not pay him next year, because they said he's not getting a renewed deal. So they do have the option to walk away from him next year. They did not. They have put down contract negotiations.
And when they have a top 5 offense again, are they gonna say we gotta get rid of the quarterback? Like, it's just there's so much like lack of awareness in that organization for like, we're in this crappy division and we keep beating up on these teams, so our stats are inflated, so we pay these guys. But then when we go play a real team, it doesn't work because our guys aren't good enough. Like, they're just lucky they got Micah Parsons. Like, at the end of the day, I don't even know. Micah Parsons was like the second or third best linebacker in that class, and it turned out instead of a linebacker, he's the best pass rusher in the NFL, or a top 5. It's like, that's lucky. Like, they didn't plan on using him that way. Do you know how I know? Because this first season, he only pass rushed on like a third of his snaps.
Yeah, they moved it. They had him as a stand-up backer, off-ball linebacker, rather than basically having him on the line, which is crazy.
Yeah, and then last year they did it, and it's like, oh crap, yeah, this guy's really awesome when we do that. It's not like, I don't know. There's just so much stupid, and it's like you get lucky with a couple picks, and next thing you know, it's you think you're wonderful.
Side note: it was very sad that Leighton Vander Esch had to medically retire from a cheap shot from Trent Williams. So he broke his neck or had a slip disc in his neck because Trent Williams had a cheap shot last year in the either the playoffs or the last round. Yeah, something like that. So he ducked his head.
That's unfortunate. I did not
Trent
see
Williams
that.
Came down on top of him, and now he's retired. So unfortunate.
Oh, okay. All right. This is the very last thing, because we're at an hour 15 talking way too much. Hawk tackling, or whatever the rugby tackle they got rid of. What's your thought?
What, the kid,
No, they changed. They removed a tackling rule, like, so that you have to tackle a certain way. Do you think it
hip drop tackles?
Do you think it matters at all?
What about them?
Do you think it matters at all that they,
I think it's
made
ridiculous.
a rule against it?
I am totally against banning of the hip drop tackle. I mean, because it's not a voluntary decision. And you're talking about changing the way that people have played the game their entire lives. So it's impossible, first of all. It sounds like it's reviewable, I believe. So I think that's insane.
You should never be able to review a penalty. They did it with pass interference one time, and everyone remembered, oh yeah, that was a bad idea.
So think about, I just want you to think about this, and as a defensive player, so I can no longer hit up above, okay? I can't hit them up near the neck or head area, period. All right, so now I got to go.
I agree with that rule, though. To be fair, I agree with that one.
Yeah, fine. So now I got to go below the head or neck area. Can't go head hunting. Okay, so now I've got TJ Hawkinson getting his knee blown out and in the playoffs, or was it playoffs here? Yeah, playoffs. Yep. Blown out completely. He's probably going to miss half the season next year. I get a bunch of flack for that. So safeties are going to try and attempt to not go that low, okay? Think even on a running play. Scud missile, safety comes down into the box, and he's got to play run support, run fit. And he is going to go at Derrick Henry's knee or ankle. All right? So now he's there. Derrick Henry makes a slight move, or let's say not Derrick Henry. Let's say somebody who actually can move well, Saquon Barkley. And he moves, and I go completely lateral and parallel, and I'm off my feet, completely. Superman. And I grab. If he keeps me up with his strength, which he probably will, I'm in the air. So I'm like this. I've got nothing other than my body weight to come down on the ground. That's going to end up being a hip drop tackle 9 times out of 10. And you could make the argument that happens all the time on 1 in 5 tackles. And if nobody gets hurt, nobody says anything. But now, perfect example, Tony Pollard. That's like the far and away case, him and Mark Andrews, right? Tony Pollard runs an option route. He's getting tailed by the DB. DB is like, I can't give this up. I got to dive and catch him. Catches him right around the midsection. Feet are not on the ground. What am I going to do? Am I going to let him walk into the end zone, lose my job, lose the game, off the roster, out of the NFL? Or am I going to tackle him, Phil? What do you want me to do? So I think it's ridiculous that I am adamantly against this, because you're already taking it out of the defense's hands and making it more offensive. But by the way, historically, fun fact, the year-over-year in points scored total declined last year in the NFL. So they're trying to bump that back up. Anyways, that was a long soliloquy on hip drop tackles and why I think.
Yeah, you're good. I think I don't know. I haven't watched too much NFL talk recently, but I needed to hear that because I knew in my opinion, I knew it was going to matter because the first 3-4 games, people aren't going to know how to tackle. It's going to get overcalled. Whenever they put a new penalty, it's going to get overcalled, and then they'll back off of it because it's easier to back off overcalling than it is to institute it later in the year. So I think it's just going to be a mess for a couple weeks. But yeah, that's my take.
It's going to impact games. And it's going to win and lose games for teams. And I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Because you know what's going to get called the most? On those plays that get reviewed 15 times while we're sitting there with the reason my wife hates football. I go, hey, there's 3 minutes left in the game. She's like, you're going to be there for another half hour. I'm like,
yep.
Right.
So I'm vehemently opposed to that rule, if you can't tell.
Look at that. We go from not having much to talk about to not shutting up for way too long. Just our style.
Just let me riff.
I could talk all day about nothing. You took lessons from Donkey and Shrek, haven't you? All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you have questions or stuff, we are happy to overanalyze them. One day we'll get to covering what I wanted to, which was win totals. We'll do that with Ken. That's his kind of thing.
Ken can do that when I'm not available.
Ken can show up again when Connor's not here because he has other important things to do. All right. See you guys.